Hi, and thank you for joining me on episode 39 of Tennis Volley Talk with Brian Danielson. Hey, today, what I've done, I'm getting back to Tulsa roots again in Oklahoma. Today, what I ended up doing is over the phone interview with Melissa Mckorkle. She is actually the director of Lafortune Tennis Center and one of the nicer tennis facilities within the country. Has been voted that many times for in that area, which is called the Missouri Valley. Our part is the Northern Valley up here in Minnesota, but there it's called the Missouri Valley, and it kind of covers all Texas and Missouri and Oklahoma and surrounding areas, Arkansas, stuff of that nature. So, but it's a very good tennis facility, and people flock, and then they play, and they have many leagues there that you can play. So, as we go today, I'll let you listen to some of the interview. I'll pause it, let you know where I was in my tennis life, and then get back to it, and then. Also, we have Racket of the Day too. So for you podcasters, you want to take a look at what the racket is that I'm talking about, be sure and do that. And I can and go to my YouTube channel, Tennis Volley Talk. So without further ado, here we go, and we can see what can happen here.
Start with asking questions, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me back on Tennis Volley Talk. Now, today, what I'm doing is I'm doing an over-the-phone interview, like I said, that I was going to try to be getting some more of. Today, actually, what I'm kind of going back to my roots back in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm interviewing Melissa Mckorkle. Now, she is associated with one of the major tennis playing facilities in Tulsa, Lafortune Park. And so thank you and welcome to Tennis Volley Talk, Melissa.
Thank you very much for having me, Brian.
Yeah. One of the things I'm just kind of through growing up in Tulsa and everything of that nature, did you grow up in Tulsa, or did you come from another place with your parents? Kind of like how did you end up in Tulsa?
So I was born and raised all in Tulsa. I went to all Tulsa public schools and left for college for a short time for the 4 years, and then that's my entire life.
Oh, that's amazing in itself, just to have within that range of growing up in Tulsa too. I grew up in Tulsa pretty much most of my life up until '88 when I moved to Minnesota. But all through that time, growing up in Tulsa, growing up at Tulsa Hale is actually grew up in the one tennis court at Skelly Junior High at the time, and played on that whenever I first started getting into tennis, and then kind of graduated and went up into high school, which was Hale. Had their 4 courts, and of course, you kind of familiar with some of the playing conditions back then when Hale had white cement courts, yellow painted lines, and chain link fence for their nets.
Oh yes, I can remember that good.
Oh yeah, and actually the ball skidding, and you had to really kind of pay attention and really try to hit the ball real good there, in trying to keep up with the ball though too on the white cement courts. But that's kind of what I remember in growing up and getting in learning about tennis and growing up within that era of tennis back then. Of course, back then in that era, it was so popular that you really could not get a court, during the weekends, because everybody was playing tennis over the weekend.
Back then, back in the early 70s, 71, 72, 70, 71, 72, for all the way up to 80-ish, early 80s. But it started slacking off in the 80s. During the early 70s, you could not get a court during the night. There was many courts that had 10, 12 courts on them, and they were all full at night. They were all full during the day. And during the weekend, especially, could not hardly get a court. You'd be waiting an hour and a half, 2 hours to get a tennis court to play on back in the day there in Tulsa.
Back then. And then, of course, back then, too, a lot of people went to Lafortune, but a lot of people were still playing on the, local high school courts, too. So it was so getting and being very popular back then, too. So kind of basically, you grew up in the public schools, and then kind of like how or what kind of gave you the spark with tennis, and about what age was that?
Well, I was athletic, and I just really liked all kinds of sports. And back then we just hung out at parks and could be there all day without our parents. And so I was at a Florence Park, which was near my home at that time, and I would just watch the tennis players, and I was very intrigued by it. And like you said, it was always full. There was always people playing. So I just really fell in love with the sport. A friend of mine's mom got us into some very, very inexpensive lessons. I was at a different park in town, McClure Park, and we took that class for 6 weeks, and I was definitely smitten by the game. I liked everything about it. I liked the clothes they wore. I just liked the finesse of the game and just the look of it and everything. So that's really how I got my start. I still played all my other sports and just kind of did this just for fun for quite a few years.
Okay, and then McClure, that was one of the big popular courts back then too. As far as that, and they had the regular courts back then, but then they tore it up and then they remade McClure, and that lasted for a while. But now it's all kind of deserted and not in very good shape anymore, like it used to be.
Yeah, maybe a skate park. I'm not really sure.
Oh my gosh, that's not a good thing that they turned it into that. Parks and Recreation should turn it back into the tennis court and facility it used to be.
I totally agree.
Yeah, totally agree. Too many courts have gone to the wayside that Park and Recs have forgotten about over the years. I myself, and I don't know if you ever played over at Hicks Park over there.
So yeah, with that, so many of the courts nowadays, because, and I think one of the reasons kind of is that Lafortune really kind of, it's in the facility that it is, has had so many people that come there as a general meeting place to play tennis that they don't ever venture out to the courts that they used to play on. That used to be in very good shape, that are now just kind of in disarray with the look of them, and they're falling apart and cracks and weeds growing up in them and stuff of that nature. But they used to be really good courts all over the area of where I lived and in around in that area.
31st and Mingo, which was very popular back then too.
Yeah.
And a lot of the players back then that played at Hicks were the major players that used to be in the Lafortune Park tennis tournaments in the Tulsa world and stuff of that nature. And I don't know if you remember the name Dick Pinkowski or not, but he was a big popular, won a lot of tournaments back in the day, back when he was playing too. But that's where I first, and as if you knew, and that's where I first met and kind of saw the Mr. Tennis Frank Ward too, with that.
Okay, yeah.
And, with that and him running the tournaments and having all of those people that were in it and just kind of ran it so smoothly back then with like over 1,000 people in it too. And that was an amazing, and how it was run too. But of course then with Lafortune too, with being then, the overrun of that, they kind of infiltrated, Tracy Park and McClure and everything like that. So it was kind of an overflow, with the tournaments back then. But still a lot of fun to go and be in a tournament and see what you could do and where you could go in the tournaments as far as that. Now, later on, I mean, as far as I know, you got the bug and you started playing and everything. Were you in any of the Lafortune Park tournaments yourself?
Oh yes, I played a lot of tournaments. I remember, like you said, we'd go and park and walk all the way up there because a lot of people were there, but then we'd get sent out to some of those courts you were mentioning. So because the participation was so large, Mr. Ward did a great job utilizing every court in Tulsa. He would get them all reserved, and so we'd end up going to, like you said, Bird and Hicks and Mannion Park, just lots of different venues. Wade, but I certainly played in a lot of those tournaments.
Oh yeah, absolutely, me too. And then singles and doubles both, and everything, which was fun too, and stuff. And then of course, back then, with us being so into tennis, and asking our parents back then to buy a wood racket for $40 was like, what? $40 for a racket?
My mom bought my first racket with the green stamps. If you remember those.
Oh yes, I do remember those, and oh yeah, well that was good. That you got a pretty good deal off of that then too, with the green stamps and everything. I grew up with I grew up with the Tad Davis rackets is what I used.
Oh, that was a nice one, yeah.
Oh, it was. I had the Imperial, and the Imperial was had such a thin throat on it because I hit the ball hard, and I went through two of those rackets because when I hit the overhead, the head of the racket was at the bottom of the net, and I was holding the handle because the throat was so thin on those, and it kind of had that stress factor, and I went through two of them, and then I finally went over to the Stan Smith, not the Stan Smith, but the Jack Kramer racket back then, and finally went to that, and so that's what I kind of ended up using then for the rest of the wood part of it.
Yeah, that's what I ended up having. And I had the Imperial racket. They had the Tad Davis Imperial Deluxe, a couple others in their line of rackets. But I liked it because it was a heavy head racket, and I liked that. And with hitting that kind of hitting of the ball hard. But the like I said, the throat of that particular racket is so thin. So if you hit the ball hard, the head of the racket vibrates. So, and then that causes the throat to start having a stress fracture in the throat of the racket. So at one time or another, you go up for an overhead, hit the overhead, you're holding the handle. The head of it is at the bottom of the net. So that's why I went with a little bit more of a sturdier racket, and with the Jack Kramer Wilson series rackets back in the early 70s is what I was playing with.
Playing tennis. And of course then, all the composites came about in the early 80s, and then started going aluminum and then composite, and then as we know, it went all wild then into what we have now with the rackets that we wield. But of course then, as much as I did back then growing up, you went through strings and rackets, and you had to get them strung at one of two places, and one of two places was either Totally Tennis, where Cliff Price was the owner, and then also Frank Steiger, that was over off very close to Lafortune. I took mine to Steiger myself because he promised you could get a racket strung in one day, and then you'd have it back to you the next day.
Yeah, I went to Steiger a lot of years too, and then switched over to Totally Tennis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
with them for quite some time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then having Cliff with his his daughter stringing rackets, he strung rackets, and his son got into stringing rackets, and that's how I kind of met Cliff through Totally Tennis and buying clothes and everything. And then one of my podcasts, I interviewed Cliff, and then I've actually interviewed Frank too on the podcast too. But now, as things kind of progress for you, and I'm sure going through high school, and you graduated Rogers, and you played on the high school team in Rogers then too, as you progressed through your tennis playing days.
Yeah, I kind of have an interesting story about that, because at the time, when I was a sophomore, at that time a sophomore was considered high school, not freshman. But they didn't have the girls' tennis team. So my basketball coach volunteered to be the tennis coach so that we could make a team so that I could play. So I practiced mostly with the boys, and we got some of the other athletic girls in the school to learn tennis. And so I was able to, we were able to have a high school team there at Rogers for the first time.
Now that's really good, and that's really good in itself then too.
I wasn't a spectacular player, but I loved it.
Oh yeah, well that neither were a lot of us back then when we first started, but we sure got that tennis bug in our hearts though with us back then and stuff. So. And that's good that he volunteered so that you could have the girls' team. But then again, for you, being able to hit with the boys has probably exponentially helped your game growing up, and then going out and hitting with the girls, because you could out hit the girls then mostly because you had been hitting with the boys.
Yeah, on my side of town, I was a good girl, but tennis is a broad range. There's a lot of levels, and those kids that were on the little further south of rural Rogers had been doing lessons and a little bit more skilled than me, but I worked hard at it.
Oh yeah, well as we all did, kind of scrapping and getting our game together and everything like that. And eventually as high school ended and stuff of that nature, and you kind of popped off to college. Did you play tennis in college also then, as you for any of the scholarship or anything?
I did not. I was kind of set. I went to Oklahoma Baptist University. I was had been set on going to that school, and I pursued an education degree. They did not have women's tennis there either, so I did get to play a lot. I played with the boys again, and met some friends to play with, but not on no team per se at OB.
Yeah, with that, being able to just play with whoever you could, and then her playing with the boys, that probably, I'm sure, did help her game though too, in helping out with playing with the girls too, with other girls and her friends, with that and going to college. But at least she kept that up and kept that because she still had the love for the game and wanting to keep it up and still play tennis, even in college.
Yeah, oh sure. And then that kind of was, well, you could get a game whenever you could and play it and hit and all that and stuff. And then eventually you came back to Tulsa. Now, did you? I mean, the realm of this, the ending up at Lafortune. Now you're kind of one of the tennis organizers within Lafortune Park now at the facility. How did that come about? I mean, how did you get interested, and how did with playing tennis? How did that come about? Where you were able to get into Lafortune and doing what you're doing and doing what you are doing now at Lafortune?
Well, yeah. So as soon as I got out of college, I was determined to play as much tennis as I could. So I got into leagues at Lafortune. You probably remember Charlie Cunningham. He was the pro. Did a great job of running leagues and all kinds of programs there at Lafortune. So I got super involved. USTA began to grow, the USTA leagues, and of course the tournament I was super active in, and I just had such a passion for it. I was teaching school. I taught elementary education, but I also coached on the high school teams. I taught at Metro Christian Academy when it first opened. Then I moved to Sand Springs Public Schools and coached and taught school there. And so I'd had a lot of experience, being a teacher and a coach when Lafortune had kind of gone through a spell where it wasn't quite as popular and getting a little bit run down, and nobody really to run it. Charlie had retired, and a couple of others had gone in there and done some programming. So the job was open for a director, and
oh my God,
2003.
Oh,
yeah,
tennis director.
Yes, 2003. interviewed for the job, and I kind of told myself, my husband, who does it with me, and we just said, well, let's try it. I have that kind of experience, and if it can't make a run at it, we'll just go back to teaching school. So I ended up loving it, being pretty successful at it. The program has grown exponentially since 2003. So it's been a really good journey,
and for that to happen for her back in 2003, to have that open up, and plus her being on the teaching tennis for a team in Sand Springs, and then being a teacher in the first place too, that I'm sure helped her along with trying to get the feel for what she wanted to do for Lafortune, which she has done very well with.
Time for us that we've just really, really, really loved. We've grown, with as far as numbers and courts.
Yeah, absolutely. Over the years, of course, from the old brick house clubhouse to the clubhouse that it is now, to 3 indoor tennis courts that have been built, and I hear it's growing for more indoor courts too that are going to be built later on, and added courts too. But and with that, it is so good that Tulsa has that main place, though, that people can congregate to play the game of tennis now at Lafortune. It's such a centrally located place within Tulsa to be able to get out there, and it's reasonable cost to be able to play on the courts there too.
Yeah, we're right in the center of Tulsa. We have a lot of shopping, eating, the hospitals nearby. So it's just a really good part of town, and central to all the players everyone utilizes it, because we host 250 USTA teams, which, that means that everybody's going to come there to play tennis at Lafortune, because they're going to have to play one of those Lafortune teams. So they've been super supportive, everyone, financially, and just they treat it like their home. They keep the place clean for us, and it's a very good environment, very good family environment, just super good community of people that have helped to put all that together.
Oh, absolutely. And
so yeah, with that, it is a very nice facility, and very family friendly too. Now, you YouTubers, if you do still want to subscribe and like and comment with my YouTube here pretty soon, the racket of the day will be coming up, and this is for you podcasters. So if you want to take a look at the racket that I'll be showing here pretty soon, then take a look at Tennis Volley Talk on YouTube, and you'll be able to, and like and subscribe, make comments, let me know what you like. I would appreciate that very much. I would love to have some feedback on that, but it's one of the things that I like doing.
And then that from the humble beginnings of Lafortune back in 71 is when it probably kind of started the ground and made the tennis courts from 71 to now is just exponentially grown over the years. With that, and to be able to have somebody that has the passion within tennis to be able to grow and have the people and have the leagues, and put the advertisement out there that Lafortune has within this the Tulsa community, to be able to play and have such a big facility that is going on now. Myself, when I go back there and visit, I have a friend of mine that plays in the early morning leagues during the summer. Got to start at 7 before it gets too hot, and everything. But that's the league that I play on with the older guys that go there. That I grew up with, a friend of mine that I grew up playing with, and he's 70 plus now, but he still plays tennis, still gets out there.
Yeah.
And that's
we call those guys our Woodies group. Because,
that's right. That's right.
Woody Fugate started the league, and he has bargained with me for years to keep their costs down. So they play at a reduced rate, but they have to play at those very early morning times.
Oh yeah, and that's
oddball times for us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, my friend is John Ravenscroft, and you may know him.
Oh yeah, I know John for sure.
Yeah, and one of my very good friends that I grew up during high school and playing. I kind of got into the group over at Hale, which involved John, but then there was a lot of other guys that used to play, Haywood Kelly and Julian Williams, to name, but those are long past names, but married couple, Dwight and Jan Daly, that used to play, but me and my doubles partner kind of fell in under their wing and started playing with those guys, and that's how we got onto the court at Hale back then. If you didn't know anybody on a Saturday afternoon, and those courts were filled with doubles up from like 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And that is true. If you didn't know anybody back on a Saturday afternoon and the early Saturday morning, all afternoon, those Hale courts, those courts would be filled with doubles all day long. 4 courts all day long. If you didn't know anybody, then you wouldn't get a court. But if you did, then you'd kind of go in and fill in with playing with doubles.
Yeah, but then if you came in and you were kind of waiting, and somebody, hey, I'm leaving, come on over, fill in, and then you'd be playing doubles match, and then another guy would leave, and then that one guy that was with you, he'd go over there and play that with that team and everything. So it's kind of a little filter of close community set friends that played tennis, and then if you didn't know anybody, you wouldn't get a court until late afternoon.
Wow.
That's kind of how they did that back at Hale back then. But then, eventually, that Hale kind of went, and then they resurfaced it, and then it was okay, and you played, but, we still miss that cement tennis court. I did. Because maybe I was I know, it was the advantage, and, maybe I was more sentimental than anything, but I sure miss that old white cement tennis court. And everything, but with that, over the years of being able to have that within the realm of playing tennis and everything is just so wonderful, and to have you that have the passion to be able to do what you did, to come in and being tennis director along with your husband too. To be able to do that and grow that you have, that just makes an accomplishment in having the love and the passion for the game of tennis, and that is just wonderful in itself.
Thank you.
To be able to have somebody like that has the passion, and if you happen to think of anybody else within the Tulsa area, you have my number. You can text me, and that would be well worthy of trying to give a interview too with them also,
Okay.
And stuff. But I've had a few interviews that have really been.
Yeah, and with that too, I mean, she has really exponentially grown Lafortune and what she does from 2003 on when she became a tennis director. She has a lot of good people under her, and then that are teachers that do the tennis classes and everything. One of them is a he used to play in the Pro Tour. Very good teacher too. I might want to try to get him later on. Who knows? He's pretty busy teaching tennis. But yeah, for you YouTubers, be sure and like and follow and make a comment on my YouTube channel and follow. And please make a comment if you can, if you want. Let me know if you like these kind of interviews. I like doing them because you get the essence of how they're feeling and what they're talking about, even though you're not seeing them on a live stream. But that might come later with me. But then you podcasters, Racket of the Day is coming up. And so if you want to take a look at my racket, be sure and take a look at it on Tennis Volley Talk on YouTube, and subscribe, like, and make comments as much as you want to.
Very nice. And I'd have the opportunity to along with these phone interviews, which are just as good because people can, hear the essence and, feel the thought of what you're doing. Colin Robertson, I had a chance to interview him, and everything. He grew up, he moved from Sydney to Oklahoma City and lived there for 43 years.
Oh, yeah.
And everything, and then plus, all the tournaments that I've seen and over the years, and the Bank of Oklahoma tournaments and everything, was watching those through the years and everything. But of course, that's what we did. We go to those tournaments and support Tulsa tennis, and everything. We're in that realm with playing the game. But that is just so wonderful to have somebody like you to come and have and talk to me about how you grew up and what got you going into tennis, and always fun to know that kind of stuff within the tennis facility, within the tennis playing community, to be able to have that passion. And I still have the passion at my age, so I still think I'm better than what I am, and sometimes my days I don't do good, but I still try.
Yeah. Well, I like the way you talked about the Hill community, because that's kind of, I have to give credit where credit's due, but I have a lot of good mentors, like the people that you mentioned, Frank Gordon, Cliff Price, and Doug Boswell, and Russell Warner. The pros at the head pros at the club were great to me at the beginning and helped me, really start along. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's so wonderful to have those mentors like that, and plus the Hale group that I grew up in kind of took us under their wing and played with us, and that's what got my consistency going in tennis and kind of keeping it the way it is, and just kind of kept it up through the years that I did. So, but it was just wonderful in a way to be able to come back to my roots and talk to somebody and let you just kind of reminisce about Tulsa tennis in itself. Always nice to come back to my roots and talk to somebody that is within the tennis of Tulsa and has a heartbeat knows the heartbeat of Tulsa tennis. And somebody like you does that, and so appreciate that you gave me the time and being on Tennis Volley Talk with me today, Melissa.
Well, thank you so much, Brian. I love to talk about it, because we do have a good community of people, and our courts are amazing, and so it's fun for me just to be able to talk about my past and
it definitely it is. It's definitely and people just, it's infectious because they can see the passion that people have once they are in and got tennis in their blood. Also. Yeah. So, but
thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa, and keep in touch, and then you got my number. If you think of anybody that would be good to call and talk to, I'd be willing to do that too, and I can definitely do that. So, I do appreciate your time, and thank you for joining me on Tennis Volley Talk.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. So that was it, the interview. So we'll take it from there on YouTube here.
Well, that was it. I hope that you did enjoy that interview that I did. I really like doing it. It's a fun thing to do, to be able to catch the essence over the phone and talk to them and let them tell their story of how they got involved in this great sport of tennis. But now, without further ado, what I'm going to do is bring up this racket here. Is an A.G. Spalding racket. It's called the Lakeside racket. Now this racket here from A.J. Spalding Company. They did make the rackets back in the early days too. Now this particular racket, I'm probably saying this racket probably is in the early I would say early 50s, even though they did make, this is the Lakeside, but of course they had other names, like I said, with the Davis rackets, the Imperial Deluxe. This was the Lakeside racket. This racket's probably in the early 50s, like the late 40s, early 50s racket is when they made this racket. They actually did make this racket, the Lakeside, from 1940s into the 60s is when they did make the racket, the wood rackets up into the 60s. And then or maybe late 60s, very early 70s. But, back then, that's whenever the composite rackets and aluminum were coming out. But with this racket here, if you YouTubers, you're seeing it right now. But you podcasters, like I said, if you want to take a look at what I'm talking about and showing this racket here, the Lakeside, very nice racket, still very good shape, very still sturdy, still has all the string job to it, which is pretty good. If you podcasters want to take a look at it, go to my tennis YouTube channel, Tennis Volley Talk. Take a look at it, comment, like, subscribe, and please make comments if you can, because it gives me a chance to know where I need to be going with this and try to get it going better with what I do. But I just do it because I really like the game of tennis. And you YouTubers, please subscribe, like, and make comments also. But this racket, this is a very good racket, Spalding, A.G. Spalding racket here. So yeah, I just am glad that you have joined me this week. And please, everybody, if you still have outside tennis to play, which are a lot of places within the U.S. that do, please, enjoy. And I hope to see you and hear and let me come into your room and listen and let me talk to you about what I like. So everybody have a good week, and thank you for watching, and have a great week, everybody.